Hello physical fiends, shoot 'em ups, shmups, whatever you want to call them, what a grand genre it is. And here at Physical Paradise I want to celebrate them by telling you all of the physical releases of them on the Nintendo Switch. There are quite a lot of them and this list should be mostly complete, but let me know if I've missed anything below. I am not including twin stick action games or run and guns. I know they are genre adjacent, but they're not shooters, okay? The only exceptions I'm making for this list are rail shooters, so without further ado, let's get on with it. Abarenbo, Tengu, and Zombie Nation. It feels like I start every video list with this collection. It's an import, it's a retro compilation, oh, and they're shooters, and it starts with AB, so here we are again, dear Abarenbo Tengu. This is a double pack of basically the same game, they just have different sprites to cater to Japan or North America, known more for their uniqueness than classic shooter gameplay. I think for the time they were considered pretty decent if you're a horizontal shooter fan. Strictly Limited Games did a limited number of these in Europe, but Japan also got a version too. ACA NEOGEO Selections. There are currently 6 volumes of Neo Geo arcade games on the Switch physically, and each of them contain 1 or 2 shooters. Volume 1 has Alpha Mission 2, a fairly rudimentary shmup from what I remember. Volume 2 has the awesomely titled Ghost Pilots. Haven't played that one yet, but I definitely want to now. Volume 3 is the best one for shooter fans since it includes the incredible Blazing Star and the brutal but fun Last Resort. 4 includes Polestar, which is great. 5 has Aero Fighters 2 and the amazing Twinkle Star sprites, and Volume 6 includes Aero Fighters 3 as well as the mildly mid Z-Blade. And while there is room for a total of 12 volumes if you think about all the Neo Geo games available, there's not that many more shooters to go around, so it will be super interesting to see what comes next. The physical releases for these were only in Japan and Asia, but they do have English. Aces of the Luftwaffe. Squadron was one of the earlier shooter physicals on the Switch from what I remember. This has an interesting comic book art style and there is a focus on storytelling, which I know shmup fans can mostly forget. It does interrupt the solid gameplay, but there is mission variety, there's some good boss battles, and some longevity in its content. Air Twister is a rail shooter which I am including in this video. This was made by Yu Suzuki and was a love letter to himself basically. It's Space Harrier except with nice arse cheeks. Originally made for mobiles, it does fit well on the Switch and I love the production value this has. I love the way over the top music. I hated it at first, but you know, I'm just accepting the cheese. Akai Katana Shin is a game that eventually saw a worldwide physical release, took its time to make its way out of Japan and then into Europe and then North America. This is a cave shooter and actually includes 3 games, the original Akai Katana, the Shin version, and then a tweaking of Shin called Zetsu. I have not played any of them. It's ported by City Connection, who have had their critics when it comes to porting shooters, but from what I gather, this seems like a solid job. Aleste Collection was only released physically in Japan. It does not have English sadly, but not necessary I would assume. This includes the Game Gear editions of the Aleste series and even a brand new entry made by M2 themselves. Maybe dinky Game Gear shooters don't sound all that exciting, but from what I've heard, they are surprisingly solid and the new game is excellent. I've played one of them briefly and it was good for the console, although it brutalized my soul. Andro Dunos 2 is a totally random sequel to a Neo Geo shooter. I have this, but I can't remember a whole bunch about it, which is not a good sign, and almost ironic considering it's one of those shmups that relies on memorization to go through rather than, you know, purely a test of your skills. Think of it a bit like R-Type. It's got that 90s vibe down well too, and I think the physical release of this is a bit obscure, especially in North America. Angelian Trigger is a Japanese-only game, but it is a rail shooter, a bit like Space Harrier. It's certainly easy to get into the game without knowing Japanese, but there are story-heavy segments which may make it not worth importing, or it may be worth waiting to see if an English version ever materializes. I love the visuals though, so I do want to give it a try. Arcade Classics Anniversary Edition is from Konami, and it includes some shooters like Twinbee, Gradius 1 and 2, Salamander, Ajax, Scramble, and Thunder Cross. In fact, the only game included that's not a shooter is Haunted Castle, the misaligned arcade Castlevania game. I don't think many would say this is Konami's best. I remember being a little underwhelmed when it released originally, but the physical release for this was done by Limited Run Games only in North America. Arcade Love plus Pengo was suggested to me in my Discord when I asked people to browse over anything I may have missed in my preliminary list. And certainly this was not on my radar in the slightest. Like sometimes there's one like, oh yeah, I forgot about that, of course, how could I forget? This, I don't even know where this came from. This does contain two shooters called Shmup Skills Test and Combat Zeal, both of which appear to be competitive shooters with multiplayer in mind. I have to be frank, I don't have a clue what is going on. There's no English, it released physically only in Japan, and it appears to be mostly a bunch of party games, of which the shooters included are also two. I've lost the ability to speak English. Astro Aqua Kitty Pawsome Collection was done by Limited Run Games in North America. This includes two games. Astro Aqua Kitty is a shooter adjacent, and some may consider it a shmup. I personally would not. There's too much adventuring, too many RPG elements, but the original game, Aqua Kitty, is essentially a Defender clone, and a pretty sweet, charming one at that, and I would say that is a shmup, okay? Atari 50, the Anniversary Collection, is a beautifully produced package that takes you through Atari's history, from arcades to home console, the 2600 to the Jaguar. Briefly browsing through the list, you do get a couple of shmups in Trevor McFur and Cavern of Mars. There may be others in there too, but it's a meaty package put together with love and attention, and they make it really nice to just gradually play through all of the games in the package. Atari Flashback Classics. Look, I've got to be honest, I am not browsing through the game list for this one. I am jumping to conclusions that of the 150 Atari 2600 and 5200 games included in this package, at least one of them must be a rudimentary shooter of some kind. I would bet my house on it, maybe. Either way, unless you are a massive Atari nerd, this collection is best left missed, and instead go for the previously mentioned Atari 51, okay? It's just a much better produced package. Atari Recharge Collection Volume 2. Now, there are 4 volumes of these, but I think the only one that would count as having a shooter within is Volume 2, which includes a remake or reimagining of Centipede, which looks like it did a great job doing justice to the classic series for modern platforms. This physical was done by Limited Run Games only in North America. BATSUGUN Saturn Tribute Boosted. This is considered to be one of the very early examples of a bullet hell game, or at least it was on the way there. I haven't played this before, so I don't know how it is. Originally an arcade game, this is obviously based on the Saturn port and includes some new remix music if you want it. I should probably fire this up on my Saturn sometime to see if I should pick it up on my Switch. In fact, I think I do own it on the Switch, I just forgot because I have too many games. But anyway, it recently released in the West after being out in Japan for ages. Blackbird is another game that's a bit like Defender, but there are different levels, and also the levels of weirdness are off the scale. Now, I am a fan of this developer. They've made some really cute, obtuse, and charming games over the years, and this is something totally different, but still very enjoyable. It feels like a game full of secrets and weird mechanics that, you really need to learn to make the most of it. The physical release of this was only in North America via Limited Run Games. Bullet Hell Collection Volume 1 and Volume 2 are two separate collections done by Red Art Games in Europe. The first one recently was sent out, while the second one has just started taking pre-orders. Each one contains 3 indie shooters. I'm not massively enamored by these releases. All 6 games are decent, but kind of dinky titles, and personally I think the pixel art is overly chunky. Yes, I'm criticizing overly chunky pixel art. I don't know what's wrong with me, but these games, they just don't do anything for me. But by the way, as always, if you want to purchase any of the games in this video, well, that are still readily available of course, then you can do so via the document I've linked in the description and pinned comments. In that document, there is a full list of every game mentioned in this video alongside some purchase links, and that does massively help support me and this channel in the best way possible to keep producing useful, informative, physical content for you guys. And yeah, any purchase made, I do greatly thank you from the bottom of my heart. Go check out that Excel sheet down below, okay? It'll be a useful resource for you as well. Bullet Soul Double Pack was only released physically in Japan, but it does have English for both games. These were fairly late arcade shooters, definitely past the golden era, so to speak, from 2011. They're bright, colorful, and the presentation overall is pretty solid, and importing the Switch version from Japan is fair easier on the wallets compared to the hundreds of dollars for the 360 versions that they go for. Caladrius Blaze. This was an early import exclusive shooter, and it's a cheaper option if you're looking to build your library. It's very solid, but its main selling point is the clothes destruction. Yes, the more damage you take, the more your characters lose their clothing, which always sounds like a reward to me, like surely you want to be punished for getting hit. But anyways, this was developed by Moss, who are more known for their Raiden series, which I'll talk about later, but I think this eclipses those in terms of quality, at least interest. Castle of Shikigami 2 is a bit like the Burnout equivalent of a shmup. The closer you are to danger, your multiplier increases alongside your shot power. There's massive risk versus reward thing going on here, and I did play this when it released on the Switch, but I don't remember a whole lot about it. I know this version, they changed the translation from a terrible one to a boring one, but the gameplay still solid. I remember that puzzle boss, which I couldn't get past because I'm stupid. Cat Girl Without Salad Amuse-Bouche was released by Limited Run Games physically in North America, developed by Way Forward and released to very few people's acclaim. It is a short, weird, throwaway game that feels like an April Fool's joke. Oh wait, it was an April Fool's joke, but they're selling it to you. Cho Aniki Collection is a double pack of the first two Cho Aniki games, the originals on PC Engine Super CD, at least I think so. Weird, nonsensical, and endlessly likable, these are inessential shooters, but they certainly do have an appeal. The physical release was only in Japan, does not have English, and they're also silly expensive for what you get, but hey, you do get two muscly dudes on the front cover, which, that's worth the cost alone, right? Cosmo Dreamer and Like Dreamer Double D Collection is a Play Asia exclusive release with a ridiculously off-putting art style, but don't be put off because the games are actually supposedly rather good. They look cheap, but the developer, they know what they're doing in terms of gameplay. Very solid shooters. The limited edition is long sold out by now, but the standard editions are still readily available. Go get it. It's usually quite cheap. Cotton. There are a lot of Cotton games on the Nintendo Switch, and there are even more coming in the future. I am grouping them all together here, even though it does seem quite rude. They all have their own merits and stuff, but just quickly go through them. Cotton 100% and Panorama Cotton are from the Super Famicom and Mega Drive era respectively. Strictly limited games did individual physical releases in Europe, but Japan got a double pack called the 16-bit Tribute, which is much better these days. Cotton Guardian Force Saturn Tribute includes Cotton 2 and Cotton Boomerang. Two awesome games, although people do contest the quality of the Switch versions. Rainbow Cotton is a remake of the Dreamcast game, which was much misaligned. It had the premise to be awesome, but Switch version doesn't make it a whole lot better, just slightly better. Europe was supposed to get this via strictly limited games, but they have not printed it yet. However, it is available right now in Japan. Cotton Reboot was the first new game in the series in a long time. Well, okay, it's technically a remake of the first game and includes the X68000 version in there too. That led on to Cotton Fantasy, also known as Cotton Rock and Roll. This looks cheap visually, but gameplay is supposedly very solid and includes a bunch of characters to add to the variety. Cotton Reboot High Tension is the latest game that's coming up. I know the physical release is coming in Japan in July, but there is no word of a Western release as of yet. It could happen. That is a lot of cotton, a lot of candy, a lot of that very hot fairy. Crimson Clover World Explosion. A quick mention to this, which was supposed to get a physical release from First Press Games, but has yet to materialize, and I have major doubts it ever will. I would not pre-order this as your money may disappear. Crisis Wing was published by VGNY Soft in North America, a game inspired by Toaplan releases like Truxton, but with simple, easy-to-follow mechanics. Shoot and don't die, and it does that very well. It's visually nice, plenty of modes, and some solid pick-up-and-play gameplay that caters to all skill levels. Looks like one I would add to my collection, and as with all VGNY releases, they come in two flavors. There's a standard edition as well as an elite edition, which is hard to see the difference from like store listings, but the elite edition has shiny cover art. That's why it's $5 more, because shiny stuff is $5 more in everything. Danmaku Unlimited 3 was one of Limited Run's super early physical releases on the Switch, game number 24. However, the price isn't as egregious as one may think. I mean, it's still overpriced, but it's not bad. This is a vertical shooter of the extreme bullet hell kind. Your eyes will bleed with this, but the soundtrack is supposedly badass. I've never played it myself because it looks kind of scary for me. There are a lot of Darius games on the Switch as well. Compilations, singular releases. I lose the will to live when I break all of these down, but just to list the physical releases right here for you guys, we've got Darius Cosmic Collection, Arcade, and Console. They were two separate physical releases done by Strictly Limited Games in Europe. Then there was Darius Cosmic Revelation. That was also done by them in Europe, but later was split up and released at retail in the form of G Darius HD and Darius Burst Another Chronicle EX+. Are you still listening? Well, it doesn't matter. And then later, Strictly Limited Games also did Darius Burst CS Core plus Taito/Sega pack, and if you ask me how or why that is different from the previous ones, I will slap you around the head with a fish, because I don't know. DC League of Super Pets. Oh yes, an Outright Games release on a shmup list. Oh yes, Outright Games had a license to DC Super League of Pets, and they couldn't think of anything to do with it aside from make a rail shooter. No shmup collection is complete without this. It's supposed to be fine for the target audience, but normal shmup fans will curse the day they decided to fall in love with the genre and buy all of them. Death Smiles 1 and 2 is a double pack of cave shooters, although actually I believe it's technically a triple pack because it includes Death Smiles 1, Death Smiles Black Label, which is an upgraded version of that game, and then Death Smiles 2. Each game has 3 modes available, so there's plenty to master here, and many people say they are some of Cave's best, and I do like the look of Death Smiles 2. That Christmas theme, give me a Christmas themed shooter, I'm there. Devil Engine is available via Limited Run Games in North America or at retail in Japan, although I believe that the Japanese version comes with a small extra game called 1993 Shenandoah. I think I pronounced that correctly, but I don't know. The main game, is a highly regarded horizontal shmup with some brilliant presentation inspired by the 32-bit era, an era I am very much partial towards. You'll see my bias in this video. There's definitely a tinge of nostalgia there for me. The gameplay is supposedly good, but the presentation, top tier. Desertopia and Mecha Ritz was put up for pre-order by Strictly Limited Games, however, they have yet to print them despite selling out of all versions. Both games included in this package are highly regarded. One is a horizontal, the other vertical, made by the same developers. There are a lot of stages and on-the-fly difficulty levels to add to the pretty cool experience. Hopefully, they print it soon. Dimension Drive is a Play Asia exclusive release, one of their very early titles, but it's sold out by now, and I don't think they've done a reprint for a good while. This is a dimension swapping shooter where you flick between screens. They follow the same path, but there's both subtle and important differences between them. Playing this back in the day made me feel nauseous for some reason. My brain just couldn't handle keeping an eye on 2 screens at once. Dodonpachi Blissful Death Reincarnation is one of 2 Dodonpachi games physically on the Switch. This one was only released physically in Japan, and this is considered the better of the 2, and I really do enjoy this one, although I do play it on my phone. Balls hard, of course, but it is an essential title if you're into hardcore shmups. Dodonpachi Resurrection did get a Western physical release eventually. It is considered slightly less good than its predecessor I just mentioned, but still an essential title when Cave were at their best. Limited Run did this in North America, but Europe got a retail release which is currently a bit more affordable, but I doubt they printed many of them, so don't hang about if you do want to pick it up. The Doinksoft Collection contains Demon Throttle, which did get its own physical release, but is included in this nice triple pack. That is the more appealing option for those looking to buy. The marketing for this game always was physical only. The game did not release digitally anywhere, so the physical is the only way to go. It was a smart choice because the game isn't all that. I mean, it's fine, but it probably sold way more than it would have otherwise. Like, if it got a digital release, nobody would have bought this. Drainus is available in Japan as well as via Strictly Limited Games in Europe, and it is an essential title if you are a fan of horizontal shooters. With a Gradius-like power-up system alongside a dash of R-Type, especially in its pacing, this is fantastic. There is a wealth of upgrading options, it's accessible to all player levels, and has some gorgeous presentation as you'd expect from Team Ladybug. Definitely worth adding to the collection. Eschatos, is that how to say it? I don't know. Has been up for pre-order from Strictly Limited Games for a while now, but has not been printed as of yet, which is disappointing. They put it up for pre-order when everyone was tired of them not making stuff, so not too many pre-ordered at first. However, now that they are slowly going through their backlog, hopefully this one is soon. It is a 360 shooter made by a healthcare company of all things, but it's supposedly excellent. And in fact, it includes 2 bonus games, Judgment Silver Sword and Cardinal Sins, which were Wonderswan games. Damn, if I'd have known that, I would have put this on my retro compilations video. Why did no one tell me? ESP Rider, I can never pronounce it. I pronounce it different every single time I say it. This is peak shmup on the Switch, at least according to those who are well into Japanese arcade shooters. It was exceptionally pricey at its initial release, but has come down a little bit over the years. At the time of me making this, PlayAsia have it for $50, which is quite pricey, but still not like 90, which it was. This was the first time the game was ported outside of the arcades. It's got a great, interesting premise, characters and gameplay. It's just as solid as one can get. Espgaluda 2 is another classic cave shooter. The only thing I think about with this game is, why do we never see Espgaluda 1? What happened? For some reason, that has not received a modern port as of yet. And actually, these 2 games were considered the spiritual successors to ESP Rade. And this one, the physical release on the Switch, did eventually also get a worldwide physical release. EX Zeus, the complete collection, is a double pack of 2 arcade rail shooters from the mid-2000s. Pretty obscure, all things considered, but I do like this double pack in principle. If you like Star Fox or Planet Harriers, you'll definitely get a kick out of this, even if they lack the budget and polish. Repelling alien invasions in mech suits, you don't need much more than that in a video game. The physical release was by Limited Run in North America. Freedom Finger was done physically by Super Rare Games in Europe. It was limited to just 4,000 copies, which isn't a lot, and the game is a bit of tongue-in-cheek humor as you are a giant hand grabbing, smashing and shooting enemies. The presentation is good, with a story, professional voice acting and licensed music. There are also a lot of levels to enjoy, so it's a good all-round solid package. Gear Shifters is one of those that pains me to call it a shmup. There's just something about being in a car that makes me not want to say it. There are roguelike elements in here as you drive and take down enemies in kind of a spy hunter fashion. There are plenty of car upgrades to unlock, giving you a decent amount of content. This got a retail release in Europe, and in North America it was distributed by Limited Run Games. Ghostblade HD is a PlayAsia exclusive release, one of their earlier titles. At one point, every second game of theirs was a shooter, and they really were the pioneers of shmup physicals on Switch. This is more of a modern bullet hell type thing, originally a homebrewed Dreamcast title prior to this HD edition. Sadly, the game is out of print at the minute of me making this, but hopefully it may get a reprint in the future. Glay Lancer and Gyno Combo Pack is a double pack that was released by Limited Run Games in North America. It contains 2 titles that were Mega Drive shmups, both considered very solid for the era, with Jingu, yes, I've just pronounced it in 2 different ways in 2 sentences, that is considered the stronger of the 2, but I don't think either of them had much impact back in the day, so this is a pleasant chance to give them a try now. Graceful Explosion Machine was a super rare games release a long time ago. It's a bright, colourful side-scroller that's very square-like. Not that it's made by Square Enix, in the fact that it has a lot of squares in it. Apparently it plays rather uniquely. There is a tinge of Defender, but with more structured levels. I have not played it myself, so I can't say for sure, but most people are very positive about it. Gradius Origin is an upcoming collection of Gradius games, or Gradius games, and all the various names it comes under, with spin-offs and localizations. These are the arcade versions, which is a bit disappointing. It doesn't come with console ports like M2 usually do with their collections, but most would say that the arcade versions are the best and the only ones one needs. Fair enough, but come on, who can say no to the Game Boy games? Limited Run did this in North America, but Japan is getting a release there if you missed it. Griffin Knight Epic is a release from Strictly Limited Games. It was one of their more low-key releases that had a low amount and sold pretty quickly. It is a good game apparently with its medieval theme. It mixes bog-standard side-scrolling shooting, but there are plenty of alternative routes to give an essence of exploration, and you can even go back to previous sections. It's a good mix of classic and new ideas. Gunvein was released physically by NG Dev only on their website. This is another aggression-based shooter where you are rewarded for putting yourself in danger. It's the Steve-O of the shmup world. There is a lot of inspiration from Dodonpachi in this one. That makes it one of the best indie shmups out there if you can grab the physical for a reasonable price. Haisho Same 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 was released physically in Japan. This contains various editions of like Fire Shark, Flying Shark. It's very comprehensive, as you'd expect from the Shot Trigger series from M2. There is no English in the package outside of the English editions of those games, but it's not a big deal. You can make your way through the menus to get to the games pretty easily. Horihue and Friends is an old school style shooter that some people either really like or dislike. It's in the Q-em-up genre, where you control 2 pilots at once over 6 stages and 13 boss battles. There is an interesting power-up system where you also upgrade a town, which will help you in the main levels. That sounds interesting. Hyper Sentinel is basically a modern-day Uridium, which was hugely popular on home PCs back in the day, especially in the UK and Europe probably. A bit before my time, but people of a certain age are probably watching this with a boner. It's certainly unique and is more modern than its inspiration, more forgiving overall, and has more content. The physical release of this was done by VGNY Soft on their website. Ikaruga is a legendary treasure shooter. The polarity mechanics certainly influenced a lot of games going forward, but sadly, the physical release of this on the Nintendo Switch is very expensive, due to being published by Nicholas, only on their website and in low quantities. There was also a Japanese release, but that was seemingly just as limited. Come on, it's Ikaruga, one of the most famous shooters in history, and they printed about 5 copies of it. What were they thinking? Illmatic Envelope Swamp and Redurgi Swag is a double pack of games that don't have English, as Shmups is not always essential, but in this case, this developer does like to have quite a bit of text in their games with lots of things going on, so it is a good idea to have like Google Image Translate on standby on your phone if you want to play these, and I think it's worth it because they tend to have a good deal of levels and content to get through. Il Velo Swamp Happy Together is another game from the same developers. In fact, it recently just came out. I don't know much or anything about it since I haven't had the time to play it, but I would imagine it's the same kind of scenario, one for those who are a bit more adventurous in their importing antics from Japan. The Irem Collection Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3 are 3 releases that are available in Japan. Each contains 3 main games, then occasionally variations of each game, and on the whole they are pretty good. Volume 1 and 3 are pure shooters, while Volume 2 mostly has run and guns, but it does include air duel. Personally, I would say that Volume 3 is the best one of the bunch so far, with some interesting obscure titles. It's worth noting that Strictly Limited Games in Europe have taken pre-orders for volumes all the way up to number 5, but have not produced a single one of them on the Switch, and who knows if or when they will. But the Japanese editions are available and affordable up to Volumes 3. Volumes 4 and 5 are probably due in the future, but who knows if they have shmups on them or not. We don't know. And by the way, if you are new here and you found this video useful so far, do everyone a favor and hit that subscribe button. Not only will you get useful content on physical video games, but you'll also be doing the industry a favor too, because the more subscribers this channel has, the more publishers will pay attention to the demand for physical media. So maybe we'll get many more physical shooters in the future, which is what we want, right? So do your bit, hit that subscribe button. Jamestown Plus is considered an all-time modern classic by many shooter fans, not only for the fact that it's set in a 17th century British colony on Mars, but yeah, it's got great pixel work and very nice gameplay that brings back the essence of arcade shmup glory days. The physical release was done by Limited Run Games, and it is a little pricey these days, which is a shame. Jets and Guns Complete Collection is a double pack released in Europe by Red Art Games. I haven't played either of them, but I kind of want to. The first game looks a bit cheap visually, but there is a charm about those pre-rendered looks that they have, which is especially apparent on the second game. The Euro shmup vibes are off the scale, but I'm on board with it. Kyogeki Quartet Fighters was only released physically in Japan. It does not have English, sadly, but, not majorly important. This is an 8-bit style shooter with the gimmick of it is having 4 players. Supposedly very good for what it's going for. The physical release was done by B-Side Games in Japan. They were a small boutique publisher that no longer exist, and the physical release of this goes for quite a bit of money these days. And to think, I bought mine for like, what was it, $15? Whew. The Legend of Steel Empire is a single game package that is outshone by one I'll talk about later, but this is the latest game in the series with its steampunk style, as you control either a biplane or a blimp and blast stuff in a very satisfying way. It's more of a remake than something new, but it does have features that set it apart, like a leveling system. Still not the best release to get if you want the full Steel Empire experience. Stay tuned for that later. Llamasoft, the Jeff Minter story. This contains 42 games, a good many of which could be considered a shmup, but I ain't browsing through the list to say them all. It's probably a collection worth owning for those who enjoy trippy experiences. The physical was done by Limited Run Games in North America, but there is a retail release in Europe. Macross Shooting Insight is due for a release anytime soon. It's been out digitally a while now, but Red Art Games have had the physical pre-orders open for almost a year by this point, and it's definitely one for fans of the anime series rather than the casual shooter fan. I personally found it a bit middle of the road, lacking in polish, despite the decent presentation. Mamoru-kun Recurse is getting a physical release in Europe via Clear River Games, and I would not be surprised to see Limited Run do a version for North America too. Originally a Japanese arcade game from 2008, this Recurse edition has additional characters, game modes, and everything from past releases put together into one. Gotta be honest, it looks a bit cheap, but that's how things were in the shmup scene in 2008. Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid Burst Forth Choragon Breath is another cheap-looking shooter, but it's actually pretty solid from what I remember playing. It's quite accessible, and there's decent replayability in unlocking lots of artwork. It was pricey at launch, but I really didn't mind it, and the physical is going quite cheap now. Mushihime Sama is a bit more of a proper shooter. Many regard this as one of their favorites. Not only does it have that cave flair, but it's got a super unique setting and theme, and I admit, I do enjoy booting this up on my PlayStation 2, don't ask. Anyways, this should be an essential shooter in your collection if you're into classic Japanese arcade types, and it should be available enough since it was released worldwide in various ways. The Namco Collection is a Japanese physical release that includes 10 games, one of which can definitely be described as a shmup, Dragon Spirit, and it's a good one at that. Being called the Namco Collection, that indicates what console it's from, because these are Famicom/NES Namco games from the past, so they're a bit rudimentary, but I think it's a solid, simple game for old school shooter fans. If you like simplicity, it's one to go for, and the physical collection is very cheap, it's less than $20. Neko Navy, I will briefly mention that First Press Games took pre-orders for this, but have yet to produce it, and I highly doubt they ever will. Don't seek this out until they actually print the damn thing, otherwise you could be throwing your money away. Never Awake is a great little game. Yeah, it's a twin stick, but it's definitely a shmup with a level progression, and what weird progression it is too as you go through loops. There's some really nice production in here, great boss battles, and plenty of content. It only released physically in Japan, but it does have English, and I do recommend importing it. Osiaberi Horijo Geki Hori is another one from First Press Games. In fact, it was their most recent pre-order, no doubt in an attempt to get some extra cash. However, once again, do not bother with First Press Games until they actually print something. Overdriven Evolution is from VGNY Soft, and it's quite a typical release for them, indie shooters that pass most people by when they release digitally. I mean, this game has two reviews on Steam, which tells you the kind of obscure releases they can pull out, but that doesn't mean they're bad or anything. In fact, it's nice to see games given another chance. This one offers slight puzzle elements to the levels, and each level has a second challenge to do, apparently. Panzer Dragoon Remake, it's a rail shooter, and the original is incredibly iconic for the Sega Saturn. I think most people would agree this remake for modern consoles was hyped for about 5 minutes before people realized it just didn't have the same impact. Limited Run did this in North America, whereas there was a European release quite a bit later down the line that was complete on cartridge, so that will be the one to go for if possible. Power Rumi was a Play Asia exclusive release. Sadly, it's currently out of stock, but there's always a chance of a reprint in the future. This has taken inspiration from Ikaruga, but instead of a bipolar mechanic, it is tripolar, which sounds like it would make my head explode, but considered good by those who have played it. Pressure Overdrive is one I always forget is a shooter since, it's driving cars. Again, sorry, I'm just a bit biased. This got kind of negative reviews, but that is a false indicator since it is a remake of a game where not much changed and people had to pay for it again, so yeah, not happy people. But under the hood, there is a good fun game in here. Strictly Limited Games did the physical ages ago, but they still have stock of the collector's edition somehow. Psycho Shooting Stars Alpha and Bravo are two separate physical releases that actually combined 3 physical releases together. Yes, in Asia, these games were spread over 3 cartridges, but in the West, we got them in 2. You'd think it would be to save money for the consumer, but they came in mandatory collector's editions, which were quite pricey, so yeah, that argument goes out the window. Either way, these 2 releases have 12 games in total from the legends at Psycho. All of them are what I like to describe as 10-minute wonders, which is my nickname. Most of them are awesome. In fact, I would say, 11 out of 12 are awesome and should be in anyone's Shmup and Switch collection. Psyvariar Delta is a miracle in itself for the fact that Dispatch Games actually managed to publish it, despite the dumpster fire of a company they became. It's another aggression-based shooter where you graze upon bullets to power up. This is actually a double pack of remakes of 2 versions of the game, so I guess I could have put this in my retro compilation video. Why did no one tell me? R-Type Dimensions EX did make it into the compilations video because I remembered it includes R-Type 1 and 2 in one package, and it also has a visual overhaul too, if you want it. In fact, you can switch visuals on the fly, which is cool. It's R-Type, it's a classic, it will crush your soul if you don't remember every single facet of it. Strictly Limited Games did the physical release very early on. Sadly, the physical goes for about $200 these days. Wow, I might sell mine. R-Type Final 2 is probably the better release of the R-Type series and thankfully easier on the wallet since it got a general retail release. A sequel to a cult classic PS2 game, full of content and grind. I haven't played that or this sequel, but I think I want to, and that has to count for something. Radiant Silvergun. I mean, this is usually at the top of most people's list of best shmups ever. This Sega Saturn masterpiece, I have it on my Saturn. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I love it. The presentation and epicness is amazing, and it oozes that 32-bit class. It's the kind of shmup that you need to learn to play rather than go on instinct, but that's what makes it so addictive. Limited Run did the physical in North America, and Europe got a retail release, as did Asia. Radogi 2 is a physical release in Japan. It does not have English, but again, this is from the same developer as the Illmatic Envelope and Il Velo thing, meaning there's probably a decent amount of text and instructions, which may get in the way of some people's enjoyment, but these are quirky as shmups get. certainly in a good way. There are 5 physical releases of the Raiden series, so you're gonna have to bear with me here, but only 4 unique games as well, so that's what's confusing. There is Raiden 3 Cross Mikado Maniacs, which released by itself. Then there is Raiden 4 Cross Mikado Remix, also released by itself, but was also included in a double pack titled 30th Anniversary with Raiden 4 Director's Cut, which in turn got its own physical release individually too. And then finally there is a new game titled Raiden Nova, which is a departure from the series. I have to be honest, I haven't given these games the time of day to tell you much about them, but there are a lot of them, so they must be popular, right? Ray's Arcade Chronology is a nice compilation of 3 games, with variations of them included too, 5 games in total. These are Taito shooters from the 32-bit era, so even just looking at these games, there's always a twinge in my pants. I've got this collection, and I've yet to unseal it, but I wanna because it looks right up my alley. This has released in Japan and Asia already. In fact, I got the Asian version for like 25 bucks. However, in Europe, Strictly Limited Games have taken pre-orders for their version, but it's yet to turn up. Feels like there's an echo in here. Raystorm Cross Ray Crisis HD Collection is the peasant version of that chronology that I just talked about. That's not a shade on the buyer, but what I think is going through the publisher's head. This released at retail in the West and only contains 2 games. Why? Who knows? It's readily available, but why buy that when there is a much better complete version out there that's not that much more expensive? Razion EX is another NG Dev release, and the fact that it goes for about $200 on eBay shows it. Another pain in the ass to pick up, definitely not worth the price, but on the whole a solid entry from NG Dev, who plug away at these indie shooters with much gumption. This is a side-scrolling game with just 6 levels but 3 game modes, and has that pre-rendered 3D look, which is always a bonus point in my books. Rendering Ranger R2 Rewind is an upcoming physical release via Limited Run Games. This is only part shooter though, since half the game is a run and gun like a Turrican game, but then half the levels do make a horizontal shooter. Funnily enough, this was made by the original designer of Turrican, but it never released in the West back in the day. This was a Super Famicom exclusive up until very recently, of course. Rick Henderson is a recently announced physical release from VGNY Soft. Pre-orders recently went up as I'm making this video, and this is unashamedly a copy of Steridon, which is a game I'll talk about very soon, and why not? Copy a classic. Side-scrolling shooting but with roguelike twist to it that will keep you coming back time and time again for a slightly different experience each time. Rigid Force Redux is a random physical release from Game Fairy in Europe. It's an accessible shooter that feels like an R-type kind of game, but is thankfully easier on the soul. A simple game with simple presentation, but all the necessary design to make it a solid option. If you're looking to feel good about acing a shmup, then maybe add this one to your playlist. Risk System is another VGNY Soft release, maybe one of their higher profile shooters. Not many people talk about it, but those that do are very happy with what's on offer here. The name gives away that it is a risk-based reward system. The closer to bullets you get, the more power you absorb. The presentation has some very pleasing and chunky sprites. Looks like it would be a good one to add to the collection. Rival Megagun is one of the few times I would say maybe order from First Press Games, since this one is actually in stock. This is a competitive shooter as you battle it out with an opponent, a bit like Twinkle Star Sprites, which I love. I haven't played this one, but most say it is quite unique and well put together, if not exactly a standard shooter. Rolling Gunner plus Overpower was done by Strictly Limited Games in Europe, but there is also a Japanese edition available with English. This is a short but very well regarded shooter made by people who know what they are doing. The main game is a bit standard, but the DLC titled Overpower changes things up quite drastically, making it a twin stick shooter, so you're getting 2 very different styles of games here. RXN Raijin was one of PlayAsia's earliest exclusive games and has since become their most sought after. As a shooter, I don't think many would say it's an essential release, but it is a game that has vanished from the earth, delisted from everywhere with no sign of it coming back. That's why the power of the physical is so important. Physical, it's the only way to get this game now, and if you want to buy it, you're looking at between $100 and $200. Sega Genesis / Mega Drive Classics obviously contains some shmups with Galaxy Force 2, Space Harrier 2, and Super Thunder Blade, repping the rail shooters. As the games in this collection are from Sega themselves, they tended to leave the proper shmups to other developers, so despite the console having a reputation for great shmups, you won't find most of them here. And once again, to the power of the physical release, this 50-game collection has been deleted from all game stores digitally, so physical is the only way, at least until they find a way to sell the package to you again, which I'm sure they're working on right now. Shikondo Soul Eater and Yokai Rampage are two releases of pretty much the same game. Soul Eater is the original release and the physical wasn't exclusive to Play Asia. It's a stylish shmup inspired by Korean folklore, with the visual presentation considered to be better than the actual gameplay. A while after that, the game was delisted from the eShop and a new edition came, called Yokai Rampage, pretty much the same thing but with some small tweaks and I think an added character. This was released in Japan. Shinorubi was done by Red Art Games in Europe. I actually played this for a video on this channel back when I was reinventing it as Physical Paradise, and for the life of me, I cannot tell you how I feel about it, so it didn't leave much of an impression on me. It's a bullet hell game with visuals that will overpower anything else the game has in its locker, like it's just your eyes will bleed. Shmup Collection is a sweet little package that has 3 games on it, all indie shooters that take massive inspiration from the classics, and they do so extremely well. They may be copycats, but they're very good at it. This contains Cetasius Next, Armed 7DX, and Wolfflame, each of which play very differently from each other. You got a vertical shooter, you got a slow-paced horizontal shooter, as well as a mech action one. I do actually recommend this package, it's quite nice. Shuttlecock H. Hard to call it a shooter since you don't actually shoot, it's purely about dodging the bullets that come towards you. But hey, some people categorize it as a shmup, whatever. This is a combo of East Asia Soft and Funbox Media, which means that the European is a physical exclusive release there and actually has nudity in it, which is a big incentive to actually play it. Cinemora EX was one of the early retail shmups available on the Switch. Many people like this. Personally, I just couldn't get into it very much. It's a narrative-heavy shooter. It's got voice acting, a lot of dialogue, really solid presentation with swooping cutscenes. I don't know what it is that just didn't mesh with me. On the other hand, some people really like it and you can try it yourself since the physical is dirt cheap these days. Sisters Royale was done physically by Strictly Limited Games, which means it's sadly not dirt cheap anymore. Made by Alpha System of Castle of Shikigami fame, I believe this is their final proper game. I think they moved on to mobile gaming and NFT stuff, I don't know. But this game is pretty solid. Many consider this to be Castle of Shikigami 4 due to similarities in gameplay and style. Another grazer. These are more popular than I thought. I didn't even know the term before I started making this video. Skyrocket is a unique mix of shooter and block breaker. It's breakout meets horizontal shmup. Of course, I doubt this gelled particularly well with hardcore shooter fans. There's too much randomness involved for them, but as a casual game that's an interesting genre mashup with a colourful presentation, why not? This released physically only in Asia via One Print Games. SNK 40th Anniversary Collection contains a bunch of games from SNK's pre-Neo Geo era. Super retro SNK games. On this Switch cartridge there are 14 games, but 11 more were added as free DLC. In terms of games on the cartridge that are shooters, Alpha Mission, the original, less famous one, as well as the more famous and well-loved Prehistoric Isle, shooting dinosaurs in a biplane. That is what video games were invented for. Soul Cresta Dramatic Edition is a totally random, brand new game in the Cresta series developed in cooperation with Platinum Games and a couple of other companies. This has some deep gameplay mechanics, but it was not well loved at launch due to its visual style, which has gone 32-bit. Absolute heathens. This is peak shmup visual presentation. The price was also a big issue, and that has to come down somewhat. Limited Run did the physical in North America, but there's also one in Japan and Asia, and I have this. I haven't had the chance to play it yet, but I recently played Terra Cresta 2 on my PC Engine, and I bloody loved it, so I'm going to give this one a try when I have the chance. Soldner X Complete Collection is an upcoming double pack of 2 Euro shmups that is an exclusive to Play Asia. Opinions vary on the quality of these, but there's always a stigma against Euro shooters, but in terms of content, there seems to be a decent amount here from what I've read. I haven't played any of them, but as a Play Asia exclusive, which I'm trying to get a full collection, I am interested in giving them a fair shake. Sonic Wings Reunion is a recent release, at least in Japan. The Western physical release is coming later in the year. The first game in the Aero Fighter series in a very long time, and I think they've done a good job. I can't say if it's done the series justice since I've not played the others, but I can't lie to you and tell you I haven't enjoyed my time with it. I have. The price is unnecessarily high, at least the digital, but if you like psycho shooters, this will be a good one for you. Same kind of DNA, quick levels, lots of replayability for story and endings. I enjoyed it. You can watch my video about this game if you need the full details of the physical and my thoughts. Softstar is one of my favorite indie shooters, taking inspiration from the 8-bit era. If this was released on the NES, it would be considered one of the greatest ever. Nice, compact, vertical shooter that is full of variety, loads of different ships, customization options, definitely one you should add to your collection. The physical was only in Europe. Space Blaze is probably bottom of the barrel when it comes to physical shooters on the Switch. I could be wrong, maybe it's a case of don't judge a book by its cover, but when that cover has been used by a tramp to wipe their arse, well, okay. This only released physically in Europe and was quite rare at one point, but VGP seem to have plenty of European copies right now. If you want to add it to your collection, I don't know. Space Invaders Invincible Collection is the Space Invaders collection you want. There is a retail version that is heavily watered down called Space Invaders Forever, but you really might as well go for the Invincible collection, which has so many more games in it. And it's Space Invaders. Are they technically shooters? Probably. They're like the birth of the genre, right? Maybe in their own subgenre. Star Hunter DX and Space Moth Lunar Edition is a double pack release from Strictly Limited Games, both from the same dev but offer different perspective. One is a vertical, one is horizontal. Beautiful, colourful retro style shmups. It is a great little package of 2 underappreciated shmup gems. Steam Hearts and Advanced Variable Geo Saturn Tribute is a double pack that was released in Japan, but only one of the games is a shooter, Steam Hearts. The other game is a fighting game, but Steam Hearts is, or was, a notorious eroge with naughty cutscenes. Since this is based on the Saturn version, which was already censored compared to the original PC-98 release, this Switch port got even more censored, so it's censoring on top of censoring. Which is fine, if that's not your bag, I get it, even me too, but take that away, and what you are left with is a pretty mid-shooter, all things considered. Not much care went into the design, more care went into the drawing those scenes. You know what I'm talking about. Taking those out completely obliterated this release. You can check my full video about it for the full breakdown. Steel Empire Chronicles is going back to the Steel Empire thing. This contains that new remake alongside some of the retro editions, as well as a totally random game they found down the back of the sofa. This is definitely the one you'll be wanting rather than the retail release. In Europe, Strictly Limited Games took pre-orders for it like last year, with it yet to materialize. How often have I said that? Whereas Japan is getting a retail release very soon. Sadly, the main game, the big new remake, does not have English, but I don't think that's important, I would say. Stellar Interface is another VGNY soft special. This is the one that has the most eyes on it in terms of being reviewed, and it's considered pretty good. There are roguelike elements in here with randomly generated levels, which sounds off-putting to classical shmup fans, but there is a lot of content here. It's less about the 1cc and more about having a variety of things to do, with 100 missions, 100 perks. There's a lot to it. Is it perfect? No, but maybe worth a look. Steridon Binary Stars is one of my favorite shooters on the system. It is a roguelike shooter which, again, won't be one for the purists, but it is a fantastic time in my opinion. Every aspect of it makes it a joy to play. The presentation is impeccable, the visuals and audio are top notch, and there's loads of variety. It's the one I enjoy playing over and over again. Even though I'm absolutely awful at it, I just can't get enough. The physical release of this was only via Super Rare Games in Europe, and it was in very limited quantities, so it goes for almost $200 these days, which sucks. But there is a PlayStation 5 release coming very soon, which is like $30, so get that one instead. Sturmwind EX was done physically in Europe by picks and love. I really love the visuals for this one. Yeah, I cannot get enough of slightly cheap pre-rendered stuff. It's my weakness, what can I say? This game was originally a homebrew slash unlicensed Dreamcast game in 2013, but finally came officially to modern consoles much later on with this EX edition. It is a solid game from what I can gather, not an all-time classic but one worth looking into. Super Hydora is a super challenging shooter where there's non-linear progression in terms of the stages you visit. It's heavily inspired by Gradius in terms of design. The shooting mechanics, I mean, it's bang on, which is a good thing. And if you like Gradius, this will be an essential release, which sadly did have limited availability in both Europe and North America. Super Technos World, River City, and Technos Arcade Classics only just squeezes in this video thanks to one game, half of which is a shmup. Of the 12 games included in this package, Zind Selena Soldier of Light is half run and gun, half horizontal shooter, and I would not buy this collection just for this one shooter game, because I mean it's fine, but it is not worth the price tag just for that. But you should get the collection anyway for all the other awesome games included in it. Watch my video about it, it's great. Cider Reloaded has just recently been sent out by Strictly Limited Games as they make their way through their backlog of releases. Another Euro shooter that's going for the Amiga nostalgia. That wasn't my scene at all as a kid, but I know there are a lot of Europeans who grew up with these kind of games. All things considered, it is a decent release, a polished and accessible shooter, colourful, energetic, and is still available despite only having a low print. Toaplan Arcade Collection Volume 1 and Volume 2 are two separate upcoming physical releases that together contain 16 arcade classics from Toaplan. All of them shmups, I think, but there is a bit of crossover with many of the other game collections I have or will mention in this video. As an example, Hisho Same Same Same, which I talked about, includes Flying Shark and Fire Shark, which are included on Volume 1 of this release. But this release is purely the arcade games, whereas the other collections tend to have various versions in the mix too, like NES, Mega Drive variations. You'll see that many times, but I would consider these upcoming releases the bare bones essentials, like purely the arcade releases, so it depends if you want something comprehensive or just quality. Limited Run are doing this in North America, but it's getting a retail release in Japan and Europe. Taito Milestones 1 and Taito Milestones 2 each contain shmups. Volume 3 does not, however, so I'm not mentioning it, even though I am mentioning it right now. Anyways, Milestones 1 contains Halley's Comet. I would not go out of your way to buy the collection just for that. I think the overall quality of the 10 titles is very low unless you can get it super cheap. Milestones 2, however, is a slightly better deal and has more shooters. Darius 2. I mean, this is already ported elsewhere, but this is a cheap package. Metal Black, which I find visually unappealing for the time it released. There's Gun and Frontier, which looks pretty good. And some people say Kiki Kai Kai is a shooter, but come on, no, you're wrong, it's a run and gun. It's a fun game, but it's a run and gun, it's not a shmup. Shut up. Telenet Shooting Collection Volume 1 and Volume 2 are two separate collections. One already released, the other has recently been announced. These contain 4 random shooters that most people had never heard of before. PC Engine and Mega Drive stuff, I'm sure they have their fans, but Collection 1 didn't enamor me to the developer much. That collection did get a Western release via Limited Run Games with translated English menus, and it is possible the second collection will also, but we don't know at the minute. Either way, both released physically in Japan, just without menu translations. Not that that's important. Terra Trilogy is an impossibly cheap collection of games, one of which is called Terra Bomber, and it's very much a super simple side-scrolling, glacially slow shooter with a so cheap presentation. It qualifies for this list, what can I say? If you need every shmup physically on the Switch, well, this Terra Trilogy is one you need. At least it's cheap. It's like $12 or something. Toaplan Arcade Garage Kyoku Tiger Heli was released by Limited Run Games in North America, but there was a Japanese release long before that. Again, Tiger Heli, the arcade game, is included in the Toaplan collection I just mentioned a couple of minutes back, but this contains loads of variants, Famicom, PC Engine, Mega Drive, etc. Triggerheart Exilica and Triggerheart Exilica Enhanced Edition are two separate releases, the first of which did get a physical release in North America and Europe, but not long after that, a new Japanese edition came out with some extras. Nothing essential, just like more story content, CGs, tweaks, nothing to cry about missing out on, but either way, this was originally a Dreamcast game, officially too, like in 2007. A fun, gimmicky game where you grab enemies and lob them. I always enjoyed that. Trouble Witcher's Final, Episode 1, Daughters of Amalgam, has a Japanese physical release that was kind of rare at one point, but it is getting a European physical release, which is exclusive to In Games' website. That is linked in the Excel sheet provided in the description. That one even includes the Cotton DLC. This is a hyperactive, colourful, horizontal shooter, a cute 'em up with witches. So very much like Cotton, you can see why they teamed up, and it is considered one of the more underrated or overlooked games. It's not going to be top of everyone's list in terms of quality, but in terms of just being likable, it's up there. Under Defeat is another official late Dreamcast game that made it to the modern era. Physically too, which is always a good thing. This is a helicopter shooter that I've tried to get to grips with, but I find the movement a bit awkward. I don't like the swishy controls, you know what I'm talking about. And the enemies are a bit too tanky for my liking, but it is a well-loved, edgy shmup that is available physically worldwide, although the North American release was with Limited Run Games. The Sara Collection was done by Strictly Limited Games in Europe, and this is a triple pack of arcade shooters, two of which are retro games from 2000 and 2001. The third game is a new entry, and very much a weird one, but still likable. From what I remember during my playtime is that there is a big emphasis on melee attacks too, and I do believe they are balls hard even for the genre. Waifu Uncovered and Waifu Discovered 2 Medieval Fantasy are two games that serve one purpose and one purpose only, especially in the physical release, because the longer you play the levels, the more the women in the background, their clothes rip and tear, until eventually they become fully naked. I played the original game, and in terms of gameplay, it is one of the most boring and painful shooters I have ever played in my life, and I have zero desire to play the second game. The physicals of these actually has even more nudity than the digital release, so if you must play these for the naughty bits, you should get the physical release, which were only released in Europe, but they are linked below in the description. You can grab them if you're that kind of person. Wolf Fang / Skull Fang Saturn Tribute Boosted was released in Japan and contains two games, but only Skull Fang, I would say, is a shooter, a vertical scroller where you have to purposely control the speed of your fighter jet. Pretty unique. I don't know if it's good. Now, the release does not include English in-game, but the emulator menus are in English. Not a massive deal, but it is worth noting that these games do contain quite extensive cutscenes between stages, and you won't understand them unless you know Japanese. X-Out Resurfaced is a remake of a Euro classic, so I'm told, and it looks pretty awesome. There is a physical collector's edition available at In Games, which is linked below, but there is a retail release of the standard edition in Europe. Nothing in North America. I love the glowy visuals here, looks like a solid remake of an Amiga shooter, and the reviews are quite positive. Eurokill, the Calumniation Games, is a mix of a shooter and a visual novel adventure game. Unsurprisingly, neither genre particularly shines. They feel tacked on to one another, developed by different teams with about half a budget compared to what they should have, but at least it tries something different, and it is okay at a push. Feels more like an experiment. Zero Fire is a collection of Zero Wing and Hellfire. Again, these are covered in the Toa Plan collections. Now, the Japanese release is a bit confusing for me since I am seeing conflicting information. I don't know if the physical release of this has the DLC on the cartridge or not. I don't know if it contains all the console versions, or do they need to be downloaded, or do they need to be purchased separately. If anyone could let me know about that, like just declare it to me officially, that would be great. Eartheon is a recent announcement. In fact, it was announced physically while I was in the middle of recording. This is up for pre-order at Limited Run Games, but there will be a Japanese release in the future too. This is a 16-bit style shooter made by Yuzo Koshiro himself, or at least his company. So there's definitely a seal of quality going into this, and it's using authentic Mega Drive specs just to get that extra classic feeling. It looks ace. And very quickly, here are some games I did consider putting on the list, but decided against it in the end, and these include Earth Atlantis, Too much exploration for a shooter, no way. The Night Witch, very similar thing. Pocky and Rocky, shut up, it's a run and gun, okay? And there are pretty much all the shmups on the Switch physically. Did I miss anything? I always miss one thing, okay? So you gotta let me know below. But I try to be as comprehensive as I possibly can be. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what is your favorite shmup on the Switch. If you want to purchase any of them and you want to support me in the best way possible, please purchase via the links in the description, okay? That really does help me in the best way possible, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Plus, you can also watch some of the other videos that I make. I make long list videos like this, but also smaller videos with quick, shorter information for your informative needs. I can speak English, I promise, okay? Take care.